So yesterday, you probably watched Fox News and you saw the testimony from Fauci. Dr. Fauci was there in front of our senators, and he pleaded the fifth 111 times. And Senator Rand Paul was not happy about that. He threatens now to hold Fauci in contempt of court after he refused to answer the questions, because he says, look, he has a pardon, so why not answer the questions? He says that he doesn't think Fauci has the right to invoke the fifth after Biden pardoned him, and he plans a committee vote next week. But here's a montage, if you missed it, of some of the questions, great questions, that we as the public deserve answers to. Senators were asking him, and he pleaded the fifth. Listen.
Can you explain to the committee why you chose to fund this dangerous research in China?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Many people believe this came from the lab. Do you think that the risks really are worth the benefits for gain-of-function research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
How do you ensure that our national security and public health is protected when private organizations work with foreign countries of concern and have the no government oversight, such as the EcoHealth Alliance research grant you funded in a CCP military lab?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color is the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you feel like you're in deep?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, and Senator Rand Paul, I spoke with him on the Will Cain Show yesterday afternoon, and he said that he thought something was accomplished because this was a long-awaited grilling that the American people wanted. And not surprisingly, Dr. Fauci took the fifth, but they got a lot of things on record that they wanted to get on record in that grilling, although I asked him also about whether or not this satisfies the accountability that millions of Americans wanted. Here's a little bit of what Senator Paul said.
I was disappointed. I had hoped that he would come forward and perhaps apologize. 1 million Americans died, and many people, myself included, believe that this virus came from a lab that was funded by the U.S. government. Decision for that funding came from Anthony Fauci. A terrible mistake, maybe one of the greatest mistakes in modern medical history, to fund this dangerous research in a less than safe lab in a totalitarian country.
Hot damn, ladies and gentlemen, we are locked and loaded today. The Attorney General of the state of Florida will be on our program talking about his next steps in an investigation that he just announced into Dr. Fauci. This is his first time on camera. James Uthmeyer will be joining the program, as will Rand Paul, in an interview we had to do late last night, actually, because Rand's schedule was crazy. But his full interview on the program this morning. We are locked into ensuring that the single greatest mass murderer in modern history, who has a body count much higher than Hitler, I think you could argue, into the communist leaders, echelon, Stalin and Mao Zedong, you have tens of millions of people that Dr. Fauci has either single-handedly murdered with his policies or his creation of this virus. And will we see justice? Well, we saw a beating yesterday. We saw certainly some cracks in the facade. We saw some breaking. You saw Dr. Fauci tortured in front of the world. And we saw something that I think was very, very interesting, and we'll get to in just one second, because Dr. Fauci clearly doesn't believe that his pardon's real, because he wouldn't have behaved the way that he did yesterday if he actually thought that his pardon would withstand legal muster, would withstand what is absolutely a fake, indefensible pardon of a government official. Also, if you're the science, why do you need a pardon? Why do you need a pardon against crimes committed against the United States of America? Of all of the pardons given, this is the one that is the most problematic. We're going to talk about it today. A locked and loaded show. Let's go. Today is Thursday, July 29th, 2026. Florida unveils an investigation into Dr. Fauci as the federal government, Rand Paul, will share a mountain of evidence and refer Fauci to the DOJ. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Advantage Gold is how you can make sure that your future stays gold. There are new strikes in Iran. I think I want to get to that eventually in the show. Donald Trump did open up the gates of hell in Iran yesterday, or I guess overnight into the small hours of the morning. And this means that the economy is going to go upside down. There's just going to be massive uncertainty. There's always going to be massive uncertainty. The tectonic plates are shifting. Invest in something that has withstood the test of time. Go gold. Gas is up 47% from 10 years ago, and eating costs and grocery costs are colossal. Ladies and gentlemen, that means that your dollar is getting inflated. It just is the way that it is. I hate it. Invest in something real right now. Text Benny to 85545. That's Benny to 85545. Get your free gold investment kit right now from Advantage Gold. Text Benny to 85545 to get your free gold investment kit today. All right. So the breaking news off the top is that the Florida Attorney General has launched an investigation into Fauci. Why is this important? This is important because of this damn pardon. This pardon is enraging. Here is Dr. Fauci's pardon. Here is the signature of Joe Biden. That, of course, matches the auto pen signature. It's not Joe Biden's real signature. The only person who got a wet signature pardon was Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was able to weasel his way into the actual Oval Office while Joe Biden was sent. Probably Joe Biden was like passed out. But Hunter Biden put a pen in his hand and moved his hand around and gave himself a pardon, right? That's the way that things were going at the end of the Biden regime. It was a total and complete wholesale collapse of our nation, our executive branch, and humiliation to all of us. But this pardon goes back to 2014. They knew what they were doing here. 2014. Why is that date important? And why is the lack of a wet signature, auto pen signature, so important here? Well, Dr. Fauci took, as you know, the fifth. Perhaps you were watching with us, with hundreds of thousands of others on our channel yesterday, this hearing. We covered the entire hearing, 3.5 hours. Dr. Fauci took the fifth. Why would you be taking the fifth? So first off, there's a large body of legal work that says, well, if you've been granted immunity, you can't take the fifth. What is he granted immunity for? He's granted immunity from 2014 to 2024. So it's a 10-year period. What happened in that 10-year period? What happened in 2014? Why does it go back to 2014? Well, the 2014 year is critical because this is the year that Dr. Fauci moved his bioweapons research out of America. Now, I call it bioweapons research because that's what it is. You can go back and look into the Patriot Act. We have the original documents, actually. You can go back and look into the Patriot Act and you see that Dr. Fauci was put in charge of America's development of bioweapons. So Dr. Fauci is an intel agent. Dr. Fauci is an intelligence asset. Dr. Fauci worked with the CIA, the Pentagon, and various government intelligence agencies in order to develop bioweapons. That's what his job was. His job wasn't to keep you from getting the flu or to tell you to wipe your nose. His job was to create deadly pathogens to kill everyone. And his labs kept having leakage here in the United States of America. Labs in North Dakota, labs in Minnesota, labs in South Carolina, labs in North Carolina. His labs were regularly cited for leaking their biologics out into the public. And so Barack Obama, probably sensing that this could be used against him or sensing that this could be something very bad. Maybe you just there's a pathogen and it destroys your presidency and it shuts down the economy. I don't know. But Barack Obama moved that offshore. He banned it. There's an executive order, pluck it up. And Barack Obama says no more gain of function research on American soil. So 2014 is the year that Dr. Fauci went international with his research and went to Wuhan. That is why that date is so important. Now, the wet signature is important because Dr. Fauci knows that this pardon, if it is challenged in court, will most likely not stand up because the president has to be aware of the pardons he's giving. If you were to drag Joe Biden in, I mean, we've all heard the Joe Biden tapes from this week. If you were to drag Joe Biden in and ask, did you pardon Dr. Fauci? It's Dr. Who? What? Huh? No way. Joe Biden would not be able to attest that he pardoned Dr. Fauci or why or how. He wasn't there. Dr. Fauci probably ran on his belly like a rat into the White House and signed it himself. No doubt. Dr. Fauci went in and wrote this up himself and actually punched the button on the machine that signs Joe Biden's signature. I think that's what happened. I really do. I think at the small hours of the evening, Dr. Fauci went in and ran this thing himself. And so he knows it's not real. And so he's, his Fifth Amendment right, he needs to hold tight to that like Rose on the door of the Titanic in the icy waters of the Atlantic, because that's all he's got. He doesn't have this pardon. This pardon's not real. He doesn't want to test it. So he has to claim that he's not going to he doesn't have to be he can't be forced to answer questions that will incriminate him of the crimes that he's obviously guilty of. And so that's why he had to claim the Fifth Amendment 121 different times yesterday. That's the most in Senate history. So we were watching history unfold, as we have done on this channel many times. So that's what happened yesterday. If Dr. Fauci thought this pardon was real, then why not just answer the questions? If you answered the questions and you still have immunity for it, then it doesn't matter. No one can come after you. There are double jeopardy laws in this country. That's also in the Fifth Amendment, is where double jeopardy is. So Dr. Fauci could say whatever he wanted to. Yeah, of course I created the virus. He could testify honestly, and there's nothing you could do about it because it's covered by this pardon. No one's going to be able to prosecute him. In fact, telling the truth would be the smartest thing to do in that situation. Lying would be the way that you perjure yourself again. And so this that is all of the reason that Dr. Fauci, I guess, should have been truthful yesterday, but instead he lied again. And he got destroyed for it. I mean, we were talking about this before going live on the show today. Once we heard Dr. Fauci would take the Fifth and plead the Fifth time and time again, we thought it'd be very, very bad, in a very bad hearing and boring, but it wasn't. It was the opposite of that. Hearing Dr. Fauci get gutted and roasted in front of the world, the eyes of the world, was cold comfort. It was nice to see. We don't have enough time to go through everything here. Let's go with Bernie Moreno and his F-bomb takedown of Fauci. Fauci can't even turn around without having his lawyers tell him, no, just stare directly at the floor. This is sickening. It makes your skin crawl. Zero remorse. You can see it in his face. The man was broken, soul destroyed. Probably the top rope moment is right here.
It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the f*** do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace.
A disgrace that has been talked about in the Senate halls by Bernie Moreno, and a beautiful clip here. Bernie Moreno saying exactly what he thinks about Dr. Fauci after this committee hearing. Here we go.
Senator Moreno, why do you suspect Fauci's pleading the Fifth after testifying 200 plus times before?
Because he's a piece of shit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers from the rafter. Now, Klein, let's do this with the correct timing here. Do the clip again. Here we go. Give me the cheers with the clip.
Senator Moreno, why do you suspect Fauci's pleading the fifth after testifying 200 plus times before?
Because he's a piece of shit.
I can hear it again. All right. We could do massive cheers. We do massive cheers, or we do rap horn on that one. Yes. Thank you, Senator Moreno. It's a debate. It's a debate. Do we have the turnaround? Hey, Alex, we posted the clip. It's on our page. He also asked Dr. Fauci to turn around and to look at everybody in the room that had been vaccine injured and that had their lives or their children's lives destroyed by Dr. Fauci's decisions. Devastating. Hawley, also a line of devastating attack here. The former Attorney General of the state of Missouri, going through how Fauci got rich, something that I haven't heard before. This is new. How did Dr. Fauci get so rich? Well, he had his team not fighting for America's health or to keep everybody safe and effective. Dr. Fauci was using his team at NAID in order to apply for awards for himself. Here we go.
You know what I can't quite figure out is that why you were so obsessed with it, because you're already rich. I mean, and your scheme worked here. I mean, your net worth now is north of $12 million. You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID, during a 12-month, 24-month span during COVID. $1 million you knocked down in cash money using federal resources. Now you're worth more than $12 million. You've got a pension that in its first year paid out north of $400,000 a year. 1 million people dead, you're getting rich. 1 million people dead, you're using federal employees to get cash awards for you. 1 million people dead, and you're here taking the fifth because you don't want to admit that what really happened in all that time was a multi-month, multi-year course of self-dealing. Isn't that true, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards. But now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time. I don't know. But what I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called your...
Ladies and gentlemen, James Uthmeier, the Attorney General of the state of Florida, is getting set right now to hop onto the show. I just want to play you this Bernie Moreno clip because I think it's probably the moment that we were all waiting for, and the reason why everyone is desirous of something more to happen here, because there's not a single person on earth. You know, it's like, were you affected by World War II? Were you affected by Vietnam? Were you affected by September 11th? I mean, some people were. These are vanishing things. And some people experience them in real time. You know, we're going to lose probably our last World War II veterans this year. A lot of this stuff, the same thing with Vietnam veterans. They're going quick. A lot of people didn't live through this or didn't experience this in real time. And even if it is a war and something that's big and very consequential, it doesn't actually affect you day to day. It didn't actually have some type of permanence in your life. COVID did. COVID broke the brains of our country, I think, maybe irreconcilably for a very long time. Just the cruelty of our government, our media, the censorship, what did the children. It had an effect on there's not a single person that wasn't affected. Wars can happen. Places can get bombed. Towers can fall. Nuclear bombs can drop. And it doesn't really have as much of a day-to-day effect, like a physical effect on you that COVID did and the policies that the government instituted during COVID. And that's why this moment is so powerful. Moreno says, stand up. If Dr. Fauci did something to you and created a policy that destroyed your life or your children's lives, then he asked Fauci to turn around. Check this out.
Catastrophically stupid, and that you thought that during these times saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being. Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you? You're not willing to do that? That's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyer, it's not a question. It's a request. All you have to do is look up from your lawyers and look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we know now to be the truth. You can't even look at them? That's a question. Are you able to look at them? You can sit down in the audience. There was a mom in Ohio.
So it's not just that Dr. Fauci did this to us, it's that there's been no remorse. And maybe it's just our Christian aesthetic. Maybe it's just the, sort of our grounded belief that with sin must come some consequence or some type of compensation, whether it's Christ dying on the cross, whether it's you getting on your knees and asking for forgiveness. There's just something morally absolving of somebody saying, I was wrong. And if I'm telling you, I'm not saying that Dr. Fauci should be granted any type of immunity or pardon, but if Dr. Fauci used the moment yesterday to stand up and say, I was wrong, all of this was wrong, I have a pardon, so you can't charge me for it, but I lied, and I created this virus, and it was evil, and I did it to rig the election and to get mail-in ballots, and it was part of this operation with the CIA, and it's too, I confess. And it's, this is all covered by my pardon, but you're right, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did to your children. I'm sorry for what I did to you and your businesses. I'm sorry for what I did to your state. I'm sorry for what I did to the economy of the United States and to your faith in our institutions. It's my fault. Like, there's something absolving of that. There's something that clicks in your soul and says, wow, that's like a meaningful apology. And that's wow. Okay. All right. I think you should still be in Gitmo. But of course that didn't happen. You spit in our faces once again. A sickening, disreputable, absolute, totally unable to accept any blame, zero remorse. And so now people are banging the table. Rand says he's going to charge them. He's going to hold them in contempt and then send those charges directly to the DOJ. We'll talk to Rand Paul about that in a second. But first, the man who put up this tweet right after the hearing, the Attorney General of the state of Florida, James Uffmeyer, says Fauci's lack of candor in Congress is unbelievable. My office is investigating and launching an investigation to Dr. Fauci. It's past time that we get to the truth about what happened during COVID. You can see here 1.3 million views, 27,000 likes, 5,000 reposts. Big time right here for the Attorney General of the state of Florida. The pardons won't work on a state level for state crimes. So the Attorney General of the state of Florida joins us right now to architect what happens next here. Let's go. Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being on the program. Maybe we can just pivot directly to how do pardons work? Auto pen or not, would a federal pardon work in the state of Florida?
The answer is no. No, a federal pardon can apply to federal crimes, but not state investigations and state crimes. Here in Florida, it has been eye-opening for us to see the lack of candor, to see the dishonesty, the unwillingness to cooperate with Congress. And now, the revelations that have come to light, and I want to thank Senator Rand Paul and his colleagues for continuing this fight, to continue asking questions. And now there's more evidence that shows what many people have long believed, that Dr. Fauci lied and deceived the American people. He pushed and directed that vaccines and these so-called medical treatments were safe and effective, while personally questioning that, personally worrying about that. But nevertheless, because he cared about his own fame, his own fortune, there's very serious allegations that he made money off of this entire deception. He nevertheless went forward and pushed things on the American people that took so much away from us. Physical harms, economic harms, our way of life. And so there needs to be accountability. So we're looking at any and all violations of state law here in Florida. Nothing is off the table. We'll have a team working on this 24/7.
Yeah, could you architect what the next steps are? So you announced yesterday that there is a investigation right now into Fauci's actions. What happens next?
That's right. We'll be going through the record we have. We're going to send a plane up to D.C. and get any file they're willing to share with us. Look forward to working with Senator Rand Paul. I know he's eager to find accountability. And then we'll have subpoenas out likely as early as next week, looking into what Dr. Fauci knew, when he knew it, all of the statements and directives he made. We know he's been out there bragging about how he told New York officials to lock down schools, encourage this type of behavior. People listened to him. They were duped by him. And then we're going to look at, his side business dealings, what financial gain he made throughout this deception, through grants, awards, any income he had that could have been derived from this widespread effort. But at the end of the day, I think American people realize we've lost a lot because of this. As a father of kids, my first child we had during COVID, they wouldn't let me be with my wife for a lot of the appointments in the hospital. They tried to force mask her in the labor and delivery room, constantly pushing COVID vaccines on her, even though she did not believe that they were safe. Not allowing family to be there in the waiting room. These are things that many people lost, and that's not acceptable. So he needs to pay for his lies and deception. We will seek accountability with every tool we have here in the state of Florida.
I moved to Florida because I watched what they did to my wife in the hospital during labor and delivery, Mr. Attorney General. And I don't want to get too personal on this because, this show, so it's not supposed to be about me, but, get your blood going. It was my firstborn child. And the nurses who should have been there to assist in the healthy delivery of a baby, which is, of course, an intense and circumstance, and things can go wrong. And this is the life of my child you're talking about and my wife. The nurses were instead being directed to do COVID tests on my wife and to try and mask her during active labor. They were trying to force a mask on my wife during active labor. So fuck you. You have destroyed my opportunity to experience and be safe and to have the birth of my firstborn baby be about the child and the security of the child. Instead, you are trying to shove a cloth mask onto my wife. It was insane. It broke everyone's brains. And I will be for life. I will carry that rage within me, watching that happen. You saying that about having your firstborn during COVID. I mean, the same thing. I experienced the exact same thing. It was a crime against humanity, Mr. Attorney General.
Yeah, and here in Florida, obviously, we lived a different life because we had officials that very much respected individual freedoms, but many did not have that across the country. And even here, we did suffer greatly. The inability to go to church, to go out to eat with family. Some of these mandates were absolutely asinine, and he knew it. Privately, he knew it, but did nothing. And it's one thing to force this stuff on adults, but evidence also suggests that he questioned whether or not mRNA vaccines were safe for children. But he wasn't willing to talk about that publicly. Instead, children faced so many of these requirements. I mean, having to explain to a toddler who's crying and screaming on an airplane why the toddler has to keep putting the masks back on, unless he or she's eating, a cracker, then they can take them off for a minute. Trying to explain like why that makes sense. Even a 2-3-year-old realizes that is ridiculous. It makes no sense. So we lost a lot. Again, the physical harms, healthy athletes falling over on courts after having the vaccines, a lot of the myocarditis, the side effects on children, not to mention the billions and billions in taxpayer dollars that were spent on this so-called treatment. And then just the everyday costs where we didn't get to live normal lives. We will only just start seeing the learning loss impact from many of those formative years being stolen from our next generation. So again, we've got a ways to go. We're at the initial stage of this inquiry, but I do think what has been uncovered very recently here shows the intentionality behind the deception, which is a key aspect of any attorney general investigation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like such a great motivator. The states have a responsibility, especially the top law enforcement official in free states in America, to fight the federal government when the federal government is making policies, whether it's an open border or whether it's a health policy or whether it's a DEI policy that is unconstitutional and that harms the residents of your state. Do you see that as the role here, is like protecting the children of Florida from an evil bureaucrat doing this again?
Most certainly, just as we do here with child predators. We're about to announce our 2000th child predator arrest here in Florida. This is no different. This was an invasion of individual liberties in the most horrific fashion. The precedent that was set in our judicial system with immunities will hurt us for a very long time. And look, these legal issues, there are challenges, there are hurdles. Government officials on the job do have some immunities. Congress, I believe, wrongly granted significant civil immunities to a lot of the pharmaceutical companies. But where you have evidence of deception, of lies, of dishonesty, which is unequivocally here with Dr. Fauci, and where there has been significant injury, and I would argue here the injury has been greater than our country has ever seen, there must be accountability. So we will stop at nothing to find that accountability, to find justice.
Well, final question here: why don't more attorney generals do this? I was watching the clips, and Josh Hawley was the attorney general of Missouri. Eric Schmidt also was the attorney general of Missouri. They sued Biden over COVID. They deposed Fauci. They sued over the open borders. They did a great job. They just like went out and did it. They weren't cowards about it. It's wonderful to see. You taking this step, but you took this step and no other attorney general did. What do you do to stiffen the spine of the Republican Party?
Well, I hope the other attorneys general will jump in and follow suit here. I do think the new evidence that's come to light changes analyses across the country. They're facing a lot of the same legal hurdles I have been dealing with. I'm glad that, in Missouri early on, they did try to hold vaccine manufacturers accountable and government officials accountable. Unfortunately, Congress did grant broad immunities that it's hard for us to penetrate. But in the states, we have different tools. We have different authorities. We are pardon proof. And again, I think new evidence coming to life that shows how broad the lies were will allow new causes of action to be pursued. So I hope other AGs, I'll certainly be working the horn to get other people riled up because the American people deserve it.
Now, final question about taking the fifth the whole time. Like, would he be able to pull that in Florida? Like, would you be able, because people are quite astonished at Fauci's actions yesterday, especially since has never said no to being on camera and talking himself.
And he had a presidential pardon. So if you have a pardon and you can evade criminal liability at the federal level, what do you have to hide? It shows there clearly is a worry. He's got something to hide. That's why we're going to dig in. He certainly has Fifth Amendment rights everywhere in the land, but that doesn't evade accountability if we need to pursue action one way or the other.
Maybe a final thought here on how your office has worked, whether it's fighting Disney, whether it's fighting the predators around Disney, whether it is having what I believe to be the harshest child predation laws. This is the death penalty in this state if you're convicted of being a child predator. And then, it kind of ties into what you're doing here with investigating Fauci, because what Fauci ultimately did, whether it's in the labor and delivery room that you had to experience and that I had to experience, but he stole the rights from parents to raise their children in a way that we see fit. And that seemed to be so fundamental. It's so important as Christians, as Americans, as free people, to be able to raise our children in our own value system. And Fauci interceded there and went in over the parents and instead said that we don't have rights and that we're going to raise our children based on his dictates. And that can never happen again. And it just seems like you have a very long history in your office of protecting those rights in the state of Florida. Maybe you can give just a final architecture of how are you going to move forward with that?
Yeah, here in Florida, we believe that parental rights are God-given rights. These are rights that are deeply held by parents, not school bureaucrats, not theme park CEOs that lobby heavily. At the end of the day, we protect our parents, we protect our kids. It's our number one priority down here. We want Florida to be the state of common sense and truth, and people are flocking here because of it. We're the beacon of hope, not just to the U.S., but in countries around the world. So our team here in my office, we turn to Proverbs. There's no greater sacrifice than to do what's right and just for the Lord. And we start our day every day. We're going to do what's right and just. We will follow the rules of evidence and civil procedure. We respect rule of law. Believe me, I take an oath to uphold and defend our Constitution. But we're going to we're going to pick every fight that's right and just. And we might not win them all, but we're sure as hell going to try.
Godspeed, Mr. Attorney General. We'll be supporting you, obviously, in this critical mission. And thank you for sharing how it affected your family. And that's the best motivator, frankly, to get anything done. Please follow the Attorney General of Florida, James Uthmeyer, right here, and make sure that you're fighting with the people who are fighting for us. Godspeed.
Thanks, Benny.
Got a little hot under the collar there. I don't like to let my emotions get away from me, but hearing the story about how he was robbed of his firstborn fatherly experience. I mean, you only get that one time in life. You'll never get it again. You only have one firstborn. Hopefully you have a lot more kids. I want a lot more kids. I have 4. The Attorney General is welcoming his 4th soon. But I was robbed of that experience. And we were my wife was tortured during the birth of our firstborn. They refused to help a woman who's in labor. She's an American, the tax-paying American. Your family's been born here for 100 years, for a century. We have our rights. We're in a hospital and wouldn't help her or give her assistance until her COVID test came back. Until she masked up while she's screaming in labor, in active labor. It's like a crime against humanity. And the people who did that, I'm going to find it hard in my heart to ever forgive them. I know I have to as a Christian, but it's actually that's the most evil thing I've seen visited on my family. And I don't think I'll ever see worse. I pray I don't. But it's hard for me to even come up with what could be worse than that. Than to torture a woman in active labor by doing nonsensical tests and by shoving cloth down over her face. It's evil. I mean, it was really hard to watch. I mean, honestly, to relive it, it was really tough to watch. Ladies and gentlemen, something that was not tough to watch was yesterday's hearing brought to you by Rand Paul. It is only Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, who facilitated all of this, and he joined us for an interview late yesterday. Couldn't make it today, but he really wanted to speak with our audience, and we really are excited to bring you Rand Paul fresh off of that hearing, ladies and gentlemen. But quickly before then, Patriot Mobile is who we use to call Patriots in order to get on the phone, on the horn, to get Rand Paul on the show. It is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, and Patriot Mobile supports our program and is a partner with us making this program possible. So yesterday we were live for 3.5 hours, working the phones, working the comment section. Patriot Mobile is the architecture that keeps us going, and we're thankful for them. They're part of our mission. You should make them part of yours. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Use a promo code Benny for a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT to make the switch today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Rand Paul joining us fresh out of the hearing, breaking some major news here as it pertains to working with the state of Florida. What happens next for Dr. Fauci? Senator Rand Paul, here we go. Senator Rand Paul, thank you so much for being here. I know it's been an insane 24 hours. Did you know that Dr. Fauci was once again shaking when you were asking him questions today? This is a little thing that we noted as we were watching the footage. You had Dr. Fauci once again shaking in his chair.
I would have been happier if he would have been speaking in his chair. We didn't know until he showed up that he would not agree to testify and that he would hide behind the Fifth Amendment. As many people have commented on the internet, can you still use the Fifth Amendment when you've been granted a full pardon? This is a question we're going to pursue. I think that hiding behind the Fifth Amendment when you've been granted complete immunity, I think it's important for people to know that the immunity was granted, only one other person in history has ever been granted this particular form of extensive immunity, and that's Hunter Biden. So he'll be remembered in history as getting the same pardon that Hunter Biden got, but then he refused to answer questions, and so we'll vote next week on whether to hold him in contempt. There is a charge called contempt of Congress, obstructing an investigation. We think he's guilty of that because all he had to do was answer honestly. Even if he answered that he destroyed records, which we believe he did, which is a crime, he's been pardoned for that. So there wouldn't have been any legal liability to simply telling the truth.
So why did he take the fifth? Does he believe that his pardon isn't real from Joe Biden? Does he not want to test the auto pen? Our contention is that he's not certain that he's really pardoned, frankly.
I don't think it's that so much. I think he knows that he's guilty of having funded dangerous research that led to the pandemic. I think the evidence is now so overwhelming. There's also so much evidence that what he would say in private and what he truly believes was the opposite of what he would say in public. A good example is that the diaries revealed that in January of 2020, he already knew that the marketplace is not where the evidence came from, not where the infection came from. And yet for years after that, he kept saying publicly, we have him saying it on dozens of news programs saying, the wet market, we've got to shut down the wet market. This is coming from the animals at the wet market. And yet privately, he knew in January of 2020 that the first cases of COVID had no association with the wet market. Now, showing this distinction between what he says privately and publicly is incredibly important. You'll recall from the beginning of it when he was telling people privately that we've studied masks and they don't work, you don't need to wear a mask, and then he's wearing 3 masks. He would say privately that he believed in natural immunity, but then publicly he would say nothing to folks. And we wound up with this bizarre policy where I knew a family where the mom died, the teenage children and young children got COVID, so did the husband. They all recovered and the mom was still alive, but as she was dying in the hospital, they wouldn't let them visit even though they were immune. It took people, and they weren't going to pass the disease. It took somebody with some courage who was in the position of public health to say, yes, natural immunity. It historically attaches to virus. It's not perfect, But if you've had the virus, you're not, and you've recovered, and you're no longer shedding the virus. They were doing all this testing. Why in the world would they not let someone be with their mom as they were dying? You know, they would never ask at the nursing home. Grandmother's dying. We got people holding their hand up to a window. They can't be in the same room. There was no science behind any of this, but it all came from Anthony Fauci, who said privately how happy he was that the mayor of New York agreed to close the schools. Gavin Newsom agreed to close the schools. But then publicly he would say, oh, I'm just a doctor and I have no power over this. I didn't cause these mandates. Other people did. But to his diary, he was saying, thank goodness I got him. Look, I got Mayor Bill de Blasio to shut down the schools. He was proud of himself. So there's never been such a picture of hypocrisy between what he was saying privately, which was probably truthful, and publicly, which was 180 degrees the other way.
Senator, we also found out that Dr. Fauci got a blood clot, an infarction after getting the vaccine, and then lied to the public about this and got treatment privately and secretly, and could have actually told the public about this. This did seem to be a major problem and a reported problem with some of the vaccines, specifically AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. But Fauci, once again, kept that a secret. Another lie that we found out because of the work that you did exposing his diary. What does that say about Fauci?
You know, the vaccine complications, one of the top 5 complications are blood clots. A type of a blood clot is a pulmonary embolism, which I think he had pulmonary embolism, but then they also described it as pulmonary infarct, which is much rarer. But basically, an artery occludes and a segment of the lung sort of loses its circulation. An infarct is sort of an absence of circulation. But yeah, this was commonly being associated, and other people had it. And let's say you were just, John Smith, and you lived 2 hours away from a big city and you had this happen, you can die from this. And so by him downplaying it, hiding it, and then all I can remember is his pictures going door to door, pushing the vaccine on everybody, and then not really being honest with it. I'm a moderate on this issue. I think older people may well have been better off getting vaccinated than getting the disease. Older people died. But with younger people, I think it's the opposite. Younger people, particularly 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 that are young and healthy, I think the risks of the vaccine were greater. And I think that's an honest approach. And then I would let people voluntarily make their decisions whether they want to be vaccinated. Instead, Fauci was like a religion. All vaccines are good. Everybody should get it. You should get it all the time. You should keep getting them. He's probably still saying you should get them every 6 months. And yet you have to be honest with people and tell people what the side effects are. There was also not a huge number, but about 6 out of every 10,000 young people got a heart inflammation, and it presents with chest pain and elevated cardiac isoenzymes, which is the way a heart attack presents. It's not exactly a heart attack, but you're presenting like a heart attack when you're 15 years old. The death rate from COVID for a 15-year-old, a healthy 15-year-old, was 0. There were no healthy 15-year-olds, not like there was one. There was 0 15-year-olds that died. There's no reason to vaccinate them. And so him not telling that he had a significant complication is dishonest in his situation, because he was downplaying the vaccine's side effects and with a religious fervor saying everyone should be vaccinated, when in reality you're supposed to tell people the risks and the benefits, and then people make an informed decision whether they want medical treatment.
Senator, I did have a question for you about a new revelation that we have here in the state of Florida. Breaking news that the Attorney General in the state of Florida, James Uthmeier, is looking at prosecuting potentially Dr. Fauci for his crimes based on Florida law that would not be covered by a federal pardon from Joe Biden. What is your take on this? Have you had any outreach from the Attorney General of Florida?
We're happy to share our information with anybody. Most of the things that we had looked at that we believed were breaking a federal law were destroying records, which is a federal law, lying to Congress, which is a federal law. And now what we're contemplating is sending a referral to the Department of Justice for obstruction of a congressional investigation. So those are very federal. I don't know right offhand what the state charges would be. we're open to cooperating. We have a mountain of evidence, and we're more than willing to share it with people who wish. We've been sharing most of it, frankly, with the public. We've been putting as much out there as possible so people can make up their own mind. Plus, there's 1,000,001 people like yourself and other sleuths that will go through this and find things that maybe even we didn't find.
So you are encouraging state AGs to potentially take up this issue. What does it look like from your committee right now? Because your committee will have now a contempt vote. Do you believe that that will pass out of committee and Republicans will be on board? And would that be able to go directly to the DOJ? Would this be similar to a Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro contempt vote where they both served prison time?
Yeah, I think they were held in contempt for not appearing or testifying. I think that's why Anthony Fauci showed up today, because there's pretty solid precedent that the courts sided against Bannon and against Roger Stone for not testifying. That's why his attorneys, he had high-priced attorneys. That's why he showed up today and pled the fifth. But whether or not what will happen with contempt, we will vote it out of committee. It will take every Republican voting for it, because I don't know that there'll be any Democrat. There's a possibility we might get one Democrat vote. But my plan is, at this point, probably to send it directly to the Department of Justice. You could demand a floor vote, but I don't have a great deal of confidence that it would pass or be able to escape the filibuster numbers. You'd have to get 60 votes, and that would require 7 Democrats, and I think that's unlikely.
Do you believe, final question here, was it exciting to kick Dr. Fauci's lawyer out of the actual room? Did that bring you at least a little bit of cold comfort?
Well, I'm not a confrontational kind of person. I actually don't love it and worry that, about acting in too aggressive of a manner. But I gave him several warnings. He didn't listen to any of them. And when you plead the fifth, one of the disadvantages to pleading the fifth is you don't get to testify. So you don't get to present your side. That's part of the Fifth Amendment. What the attorney wanted was for Anthony Fauci to plead the fifth, not have any repercussions, and then his attorney would do all the positive spin for him. We weren't going to let that happen. And I think in a court of law, he would have gone to jail. And I think if he treated a court of law with that great disrespect, I think he did not act in a becoming way for a lawyer. And frankly, he probably should be reprimanded by the people who, before which bar if he holds the Virginia bar, DC bar, I would think that the bar should look at that kind of behavior, because it's disrespectful to the law.
Just want to give you the final word here, Senator. We've never seen anything like it. Your fellow senators seemed very, very upset. Ron Johnson, Josh Hawley, Bernie Moreno. First time we've ever heard the F-bomb broadcast on Fox News. First time we ever heard the F-bomb really in a committee hearing room. Who the fuck do you think you are? He said to Dr. Fauci. Things got heated, and then Dr. Fauci couldn't even turn around and look at the people who had been affected by his policies. It's really disgraceful for somebody who claims to be the science. The last word on, what are your takeaway observations from today, Senator?
I think the arrogance, the hubris, this is a man who said he was the science, and if you challenge him, you're challenging science. That is an arrogance beyond belief. But the hypocrisy of saying things in private that are the opposite of what he said in public, the idea that for 25 years he's been an advocate of this dangerous research is a true debate. So this isn't like he slipped up and accidentally made a mistake and it led to the pandemic. He philosophically has defended this dangerous research for 15, 20 years. There's a debate, a long-standing debate that has nothing to do with politics between scientists about whether we should fund this kind of dangerous research. And I think he's on the wrong side of history. I think history will judge him harshly. I think the line of questioning that showed that he used 8 employees at NIH to apply for monetary awards for him. He got $1 million award, and then the Ethics Commission has to look at it, and everybody was like, he wants the money. We got to figure out a way to get to yes for Tony. That it just doesn't look good. And then he takes the fifth. I think he'll be remembered more like a mafia don than a great scientist.
May God bless you, Senator, for your tireless work on this topic, for the reveal of that diary, It was so dark, so disturbing, so pathological. No 70-year-old, nearly 80-year-old man should be talking about Julia Roberts that way or his own press clippings. It was disgraceful. Thank you for shedding light on this. At least it brings some people cold comfort. This man truly had a devastating effect on all of our lives. And we're thankful for Senator Rand Paul. Thank you.
Same.
All right, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next. Here's what's happening right now in Iran. I mean, holy smokes, man. Just our little Iran update here. Goodness. I want you to hear this. Donald Trump went into Iran last night. It doesn't even sound real. Michael Bay movie. And this is an ammo depot, storage facility for suicide drones. Look at that. Ever seen anything like that? Shoot. So President Trump said he's going to open up the gates of hell. He is going to beat the effing S out of them. We've already dropped enough F-bombs on this program. Sorry about that. It's like, just get hot under the collar, man. President Trump met with Zelensky and met with Netanyahu inside of the White House this week. They all went to Lindsey Graham's funeral together. Notably, these meetings were no press. No one was allowed. These were very serious meetings. And at that funeral for Lindsey Graham, President Trump had just left the funeral, the dignified transfer of 4 Americans that were killed at the Mafwa Salti Air Force Base in Jordan. Donald Trump was sitting here at the funeral for Lindsey Graham, and Iran decided to bomb that base again, and they launched 5 ballistic missiles at the base. Donald Trump was pretty pissed off about this. They launched it from deep inside a place called Komen, and they hit the base. And the missiles did hit the base, meaning that they had to be intercepted directly above the base itself. Again, American soldiers, 4 of them had just died. American service members had just died at this base with ballistic missile launches from Iran. The THAAD missile interceptors dangerously depleted, according to reports right now, but doing their job, thank God, and these missiles didn't land. Donald Trump responded with a strike on Iranian proxies in Iraq with Saudi Arabia, and those strikes were utterly devastating, drawing Saudi Arabia into this conflict. President Trump saying yesterday afternoon, approximately 18 hours ago, that it's his turn to strike Iran and that these strikes would be absolutely devastating.
I've been briefed. It's a little more of the same, but it's going to be straightening out. It's going to be straightening out. In the meantime, we're going to be hitting them very hard because it's our turn to hit them. They know it's coming. They're asking us not to do it, but they tried shooting it last night. So we had 5 rockets shot going 8,500 miles an hour, and all 5 rockets were knocked down to the ground. But they nevertheless took a shot. So it's our turn.
Now, what we hear is that the IRGC, which is a bloodthirsty radical terrorist organization, is totally misaligned and is operating completely independently from the Iranian government, the prime minister, the president, and the diplomats that are trying to negotiate a peace here and negotiate a lasting understanding about the Strait of Hormuz and oil flow and economic flow. And so every single time that they're close diplomatically to peace or ceasefire, the IRGC pops off missiles, and there's this sort of breakdown and collapse and disconnect in Iran. We're going to beat the effing S out of them, says Donald Trump to Fox News.
Yeah, guys, good morning. President Trump reacting to that Iranian attack on U.S. forces overnight in Jordan. President Trump tells Fox News about Iran, we are going to beat the effing S out of them.
Okay. Well, Donald Trump made that statement, and then Iran opened up a brand new front on the war. Now, again, this is sort of a radical breakaway, militant terrorist organ of the Iranian government that is out of control now. And a suicide drone hit a port called Damietta Port in Egypt yesterday. And this port is right there at the mouth of the Nile. You can see the fertile Nile region here, very different from the rest of Egypt, right, which is a barren wasteland. It is quite close to Cairo, relatively close to Alexandria, very famous places and cities. And this is a massive LNG port. And American infrastructure is there, and American assets are stationed there because it's supposedly safe, but it's not actually. They were on fire, set ablaze yesterday. Massive tankers were set on fire after a suicide drone. And I guess it's impossible to really know who fired the suicide drone, mainly because this is spiraling into a global war and something that we can't have happen. You can see here footage shows crews putting out the fire at the U.S.-owned floating platform in Egypt following the drone attack. So the U.S. assets there, they had to drive some of the boats out into the actual Mediterranean in order to keep the fires from spreading. There are reports that the Chinese are selling now munitions to Iran to get Chinese shoulder-launched missile systems this week. This is very bad. These are the kind of missile systems that could absolutely take down an Apache helicopter, could take down a plane, very sophisticated guidance systems. And Donald Trump not pleased about this at all. He was in Beijing. Xi Jinping is apparently coming to Washington in, when is that, October? November? Something like that. Anyway, the Xi Jinping trip has been planned. And now these assets are hundreds of millions of dollars worth are flooding into Iran. Well, China denied that this was the case, so I suppose we'll see. But it wouldn't be the first time that a country that is not allied with America has been caught trying to help the Iranians. Again, we're looking at broader world war. This is why you need to wrap this thing up. This is why we're not going to warmonger. We're not going to neocon. Like, sometimes you have to speak in the language that people understand, and sometimes that language is extreme violence. But we are encouraging from inside of the house, like a buddy at a bar, like, okay, this is the last call. Like, we should not let this spiral into a greater global all-out war. Iran strikes CIA facilities, prompting questions about Russian role. So now the Chinese and the Russians are allegedly involved. U.S. intelligence agencies are investigating whether Russia provided intelligence for Iran to strike CIA headquarters. Iran's strikes are becoming incredibly acute. It didn't used to be that way. Iran was just kind of firing dumb bombs all over the place, and Iran has absolutely no capacity to protect themselves. They can just fire off belligerent missile strikes, and it is what it is. Trump launching U.S. strikes on Iran and vowing to hit regime very hard. This happened last night. Played you some of the footage. This is the update. U.S. forces launching strikes. These strikes are a powerful response to yesterday's attempted Iranian attacks on bases in the Middle East. So CENTCOM saying that they hit dozens of locations. The strikes are aimed to further diminish the threats posed by Iran and its proxies to American forces and shipping. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks pretty bad. This is some of the footage of what happened last night, photos and videos. The IRGC headquarters completely decimated in Iran. Again, the reporting is that there are two factions in Iran that want two very different things. Now, I met with the Treasury Secretary this week, Scott Bassett. And this was a planned meeting. And we'd met in passing at various different times, but we sat down for just a meeting, just get to know you, just get to know you stuff. And I got to tell you, one of the things that has been reported, but also was talked about at the meeting was, Iran is in such a poor position economically that perhaps sanctions instead of bombs is like a much more harsh and brutal way to go about this business. And that's subsequently been reported out that the Iranian regime is just starving for cash. They are, we're running out of targets to hit. things have been so degraded. Yesterday, the Iranian IRGC headquarters across the nation were reduced to absolute ash. Iranian intelligence headquarters destroyed in attacks. IRGC members were killed. And the air defense bases completely in flames this morning. This is what they look like this morning. And perhaps the best way to move about this part of the world is just to ensure that Iran plays by the rules by imposing the kind of sanctions that you have on them that just end up collapsing their economy more than I think any bomb really could, unless you're dropping Moabs or nukes. And nobody wants to see it go that way. I certainly don't. So here's the report out of this morning
12 hours
for what's
after
happening.
President Trump warned Iran would get a beating, U.S. forces launched heavy strikes against the regime. Dozens of targets were hit, including IRGC military command centers, missile and drone launching positions, and the remaining maritime capabilities belonging to Iran. Now, U.S. Central Command released a statement saying CENTCOM forces successfully completed a heavy wave of strikes against Iran in response to yesterday's attempted missile attacks on U.S. forces. The strikes aim to further diminish threats posed by Iran and its proxies to American forces, commercial shipping, and neighboring Gulf countries. Earlier in the day, President Trump told Fox News, "We are going to beat the effing S out of them," after the Iranians launched that surprise missile attack on U.S. forces in Jordan. The president later spoke from the Oval Office, saying this.
We're going to hit them very hard. I mean, I can actually say that because in that, there's very little they can do about it. It was a different group than we're dealing with. They've already apologized, but, you know, we got to smack them a little bit.
Mr. President, you want to hit back when they strike?
Will I always hit back?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Will I hit back? Pretty much. I think that they know this, and I just want to warn that the people that hate Donald Trump, the neocons that hate Donald Trump, that can't stand him, that can't stand the MAGA movement, that can't stand our populist winning movement, that those people are all cheering for Donald Trump to go further and further and further into this war. And we shouldn't do that. All wars are unpopular, very unpopular with young people. This obviously very unpopular to have high gas prices. The high gas prices equal higher commodity prices, grocery prices, the prices of pretty much everything because it costs more money to get things to you, whatever thing that it is, coffee cup, microphone, cell phone. Everything is when petroleum prices double, the prices of everything goes up. In order to keep the economy flowing in a flow state and roaring, you need to have those oil prices, those basic commodity prices come down. That's how you cool inflation. That's how you level out the interest rates. That's how you get young people buying homes again. And the MAGA movement is about affordable homes and affordable groceries and affordable gas. And so it is up to us to just encourage the cessation of these things that are causing great damage, frankly, to the American economy. And you have to be able to take care of America first. And so while I want peace in the Middle East, an ugly peace is far superior to a hot war. And I think that I speak for a vast majority of the movement when I say that, and the people that are actually cheering on Donald Trump to go even harder and to put boots on the ground. And of course, it would never be them or their children that fight. Those people hate Donald Trump. They hate our movement. And they are thrilled because they're getting the war that they've had wet dreams about for their entire lives. It's like utterly bloodthirsty. Like, yes, regimes exist that don't like us. Yes, the history of all mankind is making peace with regimes or people or dictators that are bad. That just is the nature of humanity. You know, you have to ally yourself with Joseph Stalin in order to fight the Nazis. People don't live in the real world, man. And I'm sick of people taking advantage of this moment to try and cheer on disaster for our president and our movement. And it's amazing. The higher I have conversations with the president's team and the administration, the more it becomes obvious that they deeply understand this. and that they're looking for the correct way to refocus and recenter. And so let us pray for that. Let's pray for that peace. Let us pray for that refocus on this country. And I'm not going to blackpill. I'm not. I am not that kind of a friend. I'm not that kind of a father. I don't treat my I don't treat my wife or children that way. I'm not going to blackpill. I'm not going to abandon everything that we work so hard for, or freak out or crash out just because there's something that's happening that I don't like. In fact, the best way to help someone out who's doing something that you think is harmful to them or to you or your movement is to stay their friend and to speak to them as a friend and as an ally. So that's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. We're wanting that American Renaissance. We want to get some of these ugly wars done with. That includes the war in Russia and Ukraine that America has been dragged into. That includes these Middle Eastern wars, all of them, Gaza, Iran, all of it. All of it's messy and horribly unpopular, here in the States. And let us take the advice of George Washington, right? Do not get involved in these foreign entanglements, and certainly don't bring these blood wars, these 5,000-year-old blood tribal wars to our shores, please. We want none of it, okay? We want no involvement. I want none of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to refocus on America. Shopify is what helps us in our economic growth on this show and on this channel. We use Shopify every single Christmas season for our Christmas ornaments. This is my personal experience with Shopify. What's yours? The reason why we use Shopify is that they have a seamless integration for the product. We don't know how to sell Christmas ornaments, but we have great ideas for them. And so Shopify helps us build the store, helps us do one-click purchasing, and helps us sell. Well, I think we sold over 55,000 Christmas ornaments. It's crazy. We were able to manufacture them, get them done right here in America, and use Shopify, an American company, to make sure that they can get shipped directly to you. Fast, quick, and in a hurry. Shopify is an excellent platform for you to launch any idea that you have for your business. Make sure that you are using Shopify today. It will power your capacity to reach customers. It's done so with us. That's amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen, go to shopify.com/Benny. Start your free trial right now at shopify.com/Benny for this in your bank account. There you go. All right. The sound effects, Klein. I love the integrations. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for this week. Let's end with hopefully a uplifting poll here. Will Fauci be arrested by 2027? 2027? Maybe. Maybe because of the work that we talked about today with Uthmeier. We'll see. Who will be arrested in 2027? Dr. Fauci, 10% chance. I'm telling you, that's probably a buy. We'll see. I don't know. You know as much as I know. You watched the interview. But the guy sounds pretty interested. The Attorney General seems pretty interested. John Brennan, though, right there at 30%. Yo. Very interesting. I like how Barack Obama's at 3%. It's great. James Comey. Wasn't James Comey already arrested? Arraigned, right? Yeah, okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. You can't hope for justice in a fallen world. You won't ever get it in a world of men. But you can get it, ultimately, from God. There will be no Fifth Amendment when you're standing before your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You will be judged for your actions. You will be judged for what you do in this life. And so whether we get to see justice for Dr. Fauci or not in this mortal plane, we'll get it one of these days, right? You'll stand before his creator just like all of us. Romans 2:5. But because of your stubbornness and your unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath against yourself in the day of God's wrath, when his righteous judgment will be revealed. There we go. Don't store up wrath against yourself, okay? Be repentant. I need forgiveness, an enormous amount of forgiveness. Try not to be stubborn. Understand that you are fallen, that you are able to be in God's presence and grace only through the sacrifice of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and that God's righteous judgment will be spared to no man. And there's no Fifth Amendment in heaven. So lock in, patriots. Make sure that you are supporting each other, that you're marching on to victory with us. Just a reminder that it's summer, and so I'm going to take a little extra time with my little children. So Friday we don't have a show, but we are going to be locked and loaded and ready to go for the midterms starting this fall. And so we are thankful for you. Have a blessed, blessed weekend in this, the greatest country on earth. May God bless you. Let's go win. See ya.
Where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.